Hey, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Depending on where you're joining us from today, I hope everyone's having a fantastic week so far. To make sure you can see and hear us, feel free to find the chat and let us know where you're joining from today. We have an awesome panel for you, and we're going to be diving in just a few moments. But if this is your first time joining one of our events, welcome. We hold webinars, roundtables, workshops, and onboarding days to help share insightful insights and actionable information within the SEO community and help make sure that all of our tools are hopefully giving you some takeaways to help increase traffic to your website. This presentation will last approximately 40 to 50 minutes and a Q&A to follow. So as you have questions along the way, feel free to put those in the comments and we'll follow up with those at the end. We'll also be sending you a link to replay this presentation. And as a reminder, the topic today is AI overviews. My name is Travis Mraz. I'm a customer success manager here at SE Ranking. And today I'm joined by Barry Schwartz and Julia McCoy. Before introducing Barry and Julia, just some of the topics we'll dive into in AI overviews is the impacts and challenges we're seeing in businesses, specifically how those impact website traffic and SEO, strategies proven to overcome, how we can adapt advertising and AI overviews, and more. So to kick things off, I want to introduce Barry Schwartz. Do you want to just share a couple details from you? You're back again, so we appreciate you being loyal. But for those that may not be familiar, just a little word about how you ended up here today.
I ended up here today because you guys asked me to be here, and I said okay. So no, I'm just joking. I've been doing search, writing about search since I was a baby. Started 20 plus years ago, covering how things are changing with Google. Back then, Alta Vista, Ask.com, or Ask Jeeves. But more recently, obviously, Google and Bing. And with the things changing specifically around AI, it's been super exciting. Like it feels like the old days of covering search. And I've written close to like 50,000 articles about how search has changed over the past 20 years. So it's just like a big hobby of mine. I love talking about it. So I'm here and happy to be here. So thanks for having me.
Perfect. And along with Barry, we have Julia McCoy from Content at Scale. I'd love to hear a little bit about your background as well.
Yes. Well, I was telling Barry backstage, I followed him since early days. So I think it's funny. He's been writing since he was a baby. I relate to that. I started freelance writing. And before that, I was writing novels, books back when I was a baby. So, as a writer, I've also followed technology pretty closely and adapted whenever it made sense to. I had a content agency. We grew to about 100 writers. Along the way, I was asked a lot, how have you done this? We published content that made it to the top of Google very consistently, more often than not. I studied it as a science. And when I was asked to teach, it just made sense too. So I started writing books, have 9 books out, built up a company called The Content Hacker as a way to continue to teach what I've learned along the way. And my story to AI is interesting. In 2022, I was actually called the anti-AI writer. People told other people, hey, Julia hates AI, because I was literally saying AI is not a good replacement for the writer yet. Even when ChatGPT came out, I didn't find it capable of producing really good content that made it to the top of Google. And all that changed when I found Content at Scale. I knew I was looking at a full automation replacement for the human writer. Our founder had 20 years of experience in SEO and content, and he'd done it. And I was like, I'm not going to sit by and let this shit pass. So didn't know him at all. I pitched him on working for his company. And I said, I want to join the company that's going to eat up the jobs that I used to hire for and get paid to do. So thankfully, he let me join the ship. And now I get to be the president of the company, one of my favorite roles ever, and just study the landscape of AI, especially as it affects content and SEO.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to diving into that conversation. But before we do that, for those that aren't familiar with SE Ranking, just want to give a little plug on who we are. So we're an all-in-one SEO platform for businesses and agencies. This means experienced or just getting started. But we're not only tools, we also have materials and a support team to help you along the way. The kind of key areas in which we focus on our SEO tools is businesses working for yourself, an agency, and all that we have to offer. But most importantly, I think we see this industry, and more than ever with AI, is around how is that data being utilized, how fresh is it, how do we see those changes relevant from area to area. But ultimately, beyond that, it comes to the collaboration such as we're having today to learn from people within our sphere, within SE ranking, people that aren't familiar with us, and people that are experts in this field. So ultimately, this has led for us to be trusted by over 40,000 customers today. But that's really enough about us. I would love to just jump into the questions so we can start learning about the topic we all joined for. So I guess like just zooming out, and for people that maybe have just heard of AI overviews, maybe just give a little context of like what is AI overviews and like what do you see their purpose of? If Barry, you want to kick it off, and then Julie, if you have anything to add.
Sure. So about a year ago, Google announced that they're getting into AI. People thought they were forced to do this, and they called it Search Generative Experience, SGE. And then at Google I/O a month or so ago, Google said, all right, we are going fully live with these in the United States, and we're calling them AI overviews. So now SGE is now called AI overviews. Basically, AI overviews are Google's answer to providing AI-based answers on your query. So if you ask a specific question, Google is going to give you a little summary at the top of the search results for some queries based on its knowledge of the web, based on its index of the web, what the answer for your query should be, and then provide the 10 blue links below and other answers below that it normally would provide. It's basically Google providing AI-based answers for your query for certain types of queries.
Julie,
I think Barry summed it up perfectly. I wouldn't add anything else. It's Google putting AI in search. And I know you got some questions lined up that I have opinions. I'll wait till the other questions.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll have you kick up the next one here. But like, what ultimately are we seeing as this impact on businesses of AI overviews?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I studied the Google I/O keynote last May when that came out. And, I had high hopes for what Google said they were going to do because of the way they said they were going to do it. Back in last May, when their team was out on stage presenting SGE as it was rolling out in beta, something they said was that we know that people value the opinion of other people and that won't change. So we're always going to link to the source. It's going to be included. And every screenshot they showed, there were links, there were citations. And in fact, it looked like SGE was going to allow publishers to have even more citations in search. There was a new carousel they designed that was part of SGE, and that carousel had something that reminded me of Google authorship, where the author got their own feature, except it was the brand. There was a logo of Favicon and the actual link, as well as the domain. So you could see all of that. And then when you scroll down, the blue links below still supported additional mentions of that brand. So I was like rooting for it. I was excited. And now as we're a year later into this, what we're seeing with AI overviews is, I think, overall a negative impact on businesses. It's not good. In fact, if you Google "Are blogs dying?" just to get the opinion off of YouTube, Reddit, you see headline after headline where publishers are complaining their blog reach is in the toilet, their traffic has gone down, and it's all because of AI in search cannibalizing what used to be appropriate brand mentions of their name without citations. So it's a big problem right now. And then, of course, there's inaccuracy in those AI overviews that are affecting the results completely, because when you see something that's just not even accurate, you don't trust Google. And then you go to another solution entirely. So right now, I think the impact is not so good for publishers and businesses. And I think Google has a lot to do to fix that. When Lily Ray pointed some of this out, Google, changed their stance a little bit. They rolled back on the amount of AI overviews happening. And so they did shift because of how much that opinion went around, but it reflects the opinion of a lot of us, I think. So overall, I'd just say, again, I think there's been a pattern where Google was not accurate whenever they said on stage what their product would look like. And so there's a pattern here. Like, Google has lied to us, and it's occurred many times. And I think we're seeing something that was presented as really good for publishers, but right now, the truth is it's not so good, and we have to adapt our strategy to actually get the ROI from search, period, now.
Yeah, absolutely. Within SE ranking, we've seen some like initial research stats about just like only 90.86% of keywords just aren't triggering in AI overviews. And similar to what you said, around like 85% of those links that are within AI overviews is only one out of those top 10. So what kind of was deemed as like, hey, being in the top 10 will get you seen, you're kind of falling into that other 9. So Barry, are you along these lines of like, should be worried about AI overviews? And the impact on business?
I mean, AI in general is going to change things. I think I always see the opportunity in change. I don't necessarily worry so much about it. I love when I'm like, welcome, like go ahead, take my content, provide it to users. I write a lot about search, so I'm all for it. Of course, it will have an impact on content creators and publishers, but I think we all will adapt. I've been in SEO for long enough to see where Google's search results went from you have to type in 1 or 2 basic queries and 10 blue links came up, to Google going out with universal search where they put videos and images and text, to lots of different changes over the years when it came to Google search. And this is a big change. I'm not going to downplay it. This is a massive change to how Google search will work. But I do believe that the search community, SEOs, and content creators will adapt to this. And I think we will find ways to get traffic to our websites and monetize this stuff going forward. So yeah, it's a big change. I don't think this is the end of content creation. I don't think this is the end of SEO. I think this is just another big change to how we actually have to, build our content going forward, and how we have to figure out how we're going to monetize that. And you saw, like, Julia explained, Google did, and you guys explained with your data SE ranking, all the tools are showing a major shift down, which we call the Ray update for Lily Ray, when Google went ahead and pushed out SGE, and they made AI overviews. They initially launched it for lots of health queries and a lot of stuff around there. Google then stopped showing them for a lot of queries after a lot of complaints. Just earlier this week, we saw an increase in the number of AI overviews provided for health-related queries. So Google's scaling that back up again. And I do believe Google's going to try to scale it back up where they show more AI overviews for more queries over time, but it's still a very limited number of AI overviews generally for queries based on what Google had when Google was testing this in the search labs under SGE. So I think ultimately Google does want to do right by this. They want to do right by their searchers. Ultimately, that's the most important thing. But they also want to do right by content creators and publishers, because without our content, where's Google going to get the content to consume and build out their AI overviews from? So, although I'm not really sure if that's true, but in any event, I think there's a lot of questions here to go through. I'm not going to spend too much time talking. So, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's new opportunities will present themselves, but challenges in the meantime. So I guess, Julia, like you kind of talked about this like change in process, but like, would you say like Google like ruined the internet with AI overviews?
There was a period of time when I was like, yeah, it looks like Google's ruining the internet. And it was around the time that Lily Ray made a change happen when she got Google to actually think differently. So yeah, I mean, whenever Google made a series of decisions about how SGE was going to show, how they was going to pull in more AI, the first time I started disliking it, I was actually very excited back last May. I was like, this is a good thing, the way they're rolling it out. All the previews look amazing. And then they roll it out. I have it in beta in labs, and I'm searching up the keywords that Content Hacker ranks for. And what do I see? But Google generates an entire 700-word answer. And it's my entire article, word for word, not a single citation or link back to my site under that. And I was just like, oh, and that's when I started to question, is Google really going to put the citation every time? Are they going to check where the generation is coming from and then give that attribution appropriately? And then we see Google pull in Reddit into these answers, and old answers about putting Elmer's glue as a joke into pizza sauce, actually makes it in the generative search results for how to thicken pizza sauce. So just like a series of decisions that it absolutely felt like Google was on par to ruin search. But I think, like Barry said, I too have the hope that they're going to see that the internet, and really Google itself, is nothing without the publisher. It's nothing without the content creator. We fueled Google. It's the reason Google has the valuation it has and the content it has. And true, yeah, Google could spin up a myriad of domains and put AI content on those. Like, there's all kinds of things Google could do, being Google, with the monopoly that they have. But just the fact that there was a change made and they scaled back AI overviews, and it looks like they're trying to figure this out. I would say they're on par to hopefully not ruin the internet, but there was a period of time I thought they were. So
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if Google was out to ruin the internet. The problem with they had to launch, I mean, there was a lot of pressure from Wall Street for them to launch something with AI.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure, and Google had to come out with something that did it. They did it. I was shocked they released AI over SGE. Yeah, it was every time there was an issue with SGE in the labs beta environment, Google's like, it's beta, we'll get better, don't worry. And then when they launched it, I was at I/O this year, a month ago. I was shocked, like everybody else, that it was launched for such a wide, broad set of queries. I thought they would solve the Wall Street problem by launching AI overviews for a limited number of queries. Specifically, I assumed it would be launched for queries that didn't generate ads, because they didn't get the monetization issue fixed when they launched. It's still not fixed for AI overviews, which we might talk about a little bit later. So I was a little shocked with that. But Google doubled down when Liz Reed, the VP of Google Search, said, we are focused on this. We're going to go ahead and do this, and we're not going to pull back AI overviews completely. We're going to keep getting better and show them more and more. They're devoted to this, and I don't think Google's going to say, I don't think Google. It was interesting because you were able to pull out specific examples of when Google did things that were poor with AI overviews. Google says some of those examples were made up. I do believe some of those examples were made up. A lot of them were not. But at the same time, this reminds me of when Google launched feature snippets in like 2007, 2008. I forgot the exact date. When Google first launched feature snippets, which was a form of AI or machine learning, a lot of the examples were really funny and bad. And I think Google even linked to it in Liz Reed's blog post when they said, we are going to improve AI overviews, and they made that change. They actually linked to one of my blog posts where I kind of made fun of like Google's featured snippets when it first launched. I forgot the example. It was like a horse had 3 legs or something like that, something example. But it was some really bad examples too. It would give examples of this person dying before then they were still alive. Like, is this person still alive? And it would say, this a feature snippet would show this person's being dead. Or they would say this person's married to so-and-so when they're not. They were divorced 5 years ago from that person. And it upset a lot of people. There were so many bad examples when feature snippet first launched. It reminds me a lot of these AI overviews that we're going through right now. It's not as bad because Google is much more visible now than they were, 15 years ago. But it was pretty bad back then. And it does remind me a lot about when feature snippets launched.
Yeah, I think I've seen it in like my personal use. It's just those kind of like the incorrect information, rather it's pulled from a random joke in Reddit on a specific channel, user experience, like just being changing, and then that content quality of like, is that quality content like verbatim? Is it like actually a blend of sources and so on? But I guess like when we look at this, talking about like the impact or like potential room, but like I see some comments and questions in the comments section of like, what do we really see as this impact on web traffic and SEO?
Barry, I'll let you kick that one off.
How's it impacted? So that's the biggest concern right now, because just yesterday we reported how Google's testing putting the link cards, so that Google's AI overviews has an answer, and then you click show more, and it expands now, and then it has these cards in the bottom that show the sources that Google got that information from, links to the publishers. We're not sure exactly where in the paragraph of text the sources are referencing, but Google says these AI overviews are made up from these sources, and they're called these link cards you can scroll through. Google's now testing, as of yesterday, and I confirm with Google, they're testing putting those link cards at the top. Now, if Google launched this without the link cards embedded on the bottom, people weren't really getting clicks, although we don't know, because Google says, and Sundar Pichai said this, and Elizabeth Tucker told me this at Google, and Google's press team told me this, that Google is sending more traffic to publishers from these AI overviews. Google also told us that the links in the AI overviews get a higher click-through than having the links below in the normal search results of the AI overviews, which is kind of like surprising. I think they just worded that in a weird way. I think if the AI overviews weren't there, the click-through rate would probably be higher than if the AI overviews were there. That being said, Google will not show us that data in Google Search Console. Google's not showing us click-through rates and impressions as a filtered out option in Google Search Console. So there's no way for me to know what the click-through rate and impressions are for our AI overviews when compared to not having the AI overviews there. So that was kind of upsetting, but it actually was similar to what Bing did with Bing Chat now, Copilot in Bing Webmaster Tools. So I believe currently it's a negative. It's like you're getting less traffic if you from AI overviews than you would from normal search results or even feature snippets. But I think Google's going to try to improve that somehow by maybe, like, again, saying placing these AI overview link cards at the top of the AI overviews as opposed to embedded below. But it's really early to tell, and there's not a lot of data out there right now about what the actual impact is to publishers around these AI reviews. But we will see, I guess, from publishers over time to say, has it impacted us? But Google's still not sharing that data, and that's a big, big concern. They wouldn't share the data with feature snippets. They wouldn't show this data with a lot of these things, although they do show data for things like other weird things in search appearances. But they won't show it for feature snippets or AI overviews, which implies to me that Google's kind of lying about that fact or misguiding us on that fact about Google sending more traffic or less traffic to publishers.
Yeah, Google lied to us. Yeah, I mean, Barry said some great points. You can't track this. It's not even there in Google Search Console. So how does this affect us? I think what we're looking at, especially with the sites and the content I look at on a daily basis, is 0 clicks occurring from how the AI overviews show right now, which is not a good scenario. Especially if you're ranking for long tail keywords that bring you traffic. And long tail keywords is the strategy for a lot of businesses that are the small publisher, the blogger, the content creator, because those are your lowest competition keywords. So for example, like if I'm trying to rank for how to write a book and that leads to a coaching program and that's like 50% of my business, but AI in search is now generating a list that is all that user needs, they may never get to my site, may never get to my services. And I've seen it to where there are bloggers, you see this on YouTube, on Instagram, I've seen them talking about it. Bloggers are taking to the other platforms. It's funny because I think Google owns YouTube, still kind of their platform, but they're taking to the other platforms to say, I am no longer going to run my blog because of how AI overviews just took all of my top of funnel search traffic and completely ruined it. And now I don't even have a funnel to rely on that's bringing me consistent traffic and leads like I used to. Now that said, like we haven't taken that approach. Content at Scale.ai, our site still gets hundreds of thousands of hits per month. We're not going to like take to another channel. We're definitely still tapping into the power of search. There's still tons of opportunities despite that 0 click environment occurring. That I hope Google fixes, because really there should be clear attributions. I think Perplexity has done it really well. There's citations that occur in a very neat, user-friendly way. So maybe that's a UX environment Google will take notes from. But yeah, Google needs to fix it because there are a lot of bloggers that are actually taking their blog offline right now because they're so disappointed with this happening. And you do see that. There's a Reddit thread right now about like the death of, I was looking this up the other day. There's a whole thread where Google killed small entertainment blogs' real stories. And there's just thread after thread in that Reddit piece where people are talking about that. And there's tons of conversations. So those small bloggers are just getting really hit right now. But I still think like I would not take your site offline. Hold tight, like Warren Buffett says, the time to seize opportunity is when everyone else is giving up. So do not leave search. Just think about how you can pivot. And I know you've got some questions coming up, so I'll bounce it back to you, Travis, for that.
Yeah, we definitely see like the impact on, say, blogs or businesses that are seeing this dip in traffic. But you talked about like your company being able to stay relevant during the searches. And I guess like what SEO strategies do we see proven to work well for AI overviews? Is there anything that we're tracking there of like who is being successful and popping up in AI overviews, Barry?
So I saw one thing with Cyrus Shepard, where Cyrus Shepard basically went ahead and did something where he copied the current AI overview that was there, replaced his content with that AI overview, and then his content showed up in the AI overview shortly after, and then it went away again, and then he lost his feature snippet, and then he lost his rankings, so he put it back, and then it's too early to say. You could definitely experiment with this stuff, but it's way too early to say when it comes to when it comes to this stuff. So I don't know if there's any specific strategies out there right now for this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and Julia, so like in that kind of success that you've been able to maintain, I don't know if it's necessarily in AI overviews, are you sticking true with what you've been doing? Are you doing some of these experiments or things that you've found that worked well?
Yeah, we're definitely doing more bottom of funnel content, just as like a way to protect the traffic we do have. We're always optimizing. I got to give credit to our founder, who's a 20-year SEO, Justin McGill. He created this company, and he's on those rankings all the time. He's engineered a lot of the top pages that we have that are ranking with NLP, salience, so some really deep SEO techniques there. But our strategy, definitely, it's not changing too much, because just like Barry said, I don't think you want to experiment too much with AI overviews because it is changing so much. But we're looking at this from a brand perspective, and I think that's a way every publisher can win right now, is how do I make my brand last longer, go further, build more trust? You can't go wrong no matter what is happening with search. If you ask that question, how do I get my brand to resonate more with my audience? So for us, it's like really dialing in that funnel right now while we kind of let traffic go like this, and getting that funnel to convert at the highest rates it possibly can, testing out the offer, testing out a 7-day experience, getting the copy dialed in, looking at the stages our audience is in, and then just doubling down on what really builds a brand, which is elevating your trust factor. How do you do that? How do you get in front of the right guest audiences along with the audience you have? So just growing all of that. And then bottom of funnel content is kind of the direction we're going in with new keywords. So instead of, like, for example, top authors to read from in marketing. Well, that used to be a great keyword because it's long tail, probably low competition. You could get some top of funnel traffic to that and give them a great funnel and convert. Well, that's no longer, I would say, as good of a keyword because it can be answered by AI potentially with a list. So if you're targeting keywords that could be easily answered by AI, those could be wrong keywords. So think about mixing in, not leave them entirely, but think about mixing in more bottom of funnel keywords. So for us, it's like the best AI SEO content writers, which is very, very specific. And even if AI took that from us, well, we might still be the first blue link below and still win in that environment. So how targeted your keywords are is a really good question to ask right now.
Yeah, I think you touched on like just general things of like businesses being able to adapt to succeed there, of, hey, like understand your brand, continue with that trust, do some of these experiments, understand the impacts they can. And if you are trying to optimize for AI overviews, there's still this chance that you still end up in a really good place, even if you aren't directly in that AI overview. Is that what I gathered there?
Yes, absolutely.
Cool. And then I guess, like, I think just briefly early on, we kind of touched about like maybe paid ads a little bit. It just kind of popped up. Like, how do we see advertising work in AI overviews? Do we see like preference for this, or are they kind of in that dark space of data and what's going on as well?
Yeah. So that's the biggest concern from, I think, Google's perspective is how could they go ahead and monetize these? Are people going to click? And that was my sense, where Google has to make sure that AI overviews do generate clicks to publishers as well as advertisers. And if they're going to do it for advertisers, they have to make sure it's done for publishers, because people don't like to click on ads. So if you put in only ads in the AI overview, people aren't going to click it if it's just ads. They also have to give you a way to click on publishers' organic results that they think are quality. So I think that's why I'm not too worried about ads, Google ads being embedded somehow into the AI overviews. Right now they're above, below, side. But Google is coming up with methods that they announced at Google Marketing Live. They are coming up with ideas and new ad formats that will work directly embedded in the AI overviews. We just don't know what they are yet. We've seen some examples with Bing Chat or Copilot, but those seem to be also slow and not happening. So it's going to be interesting to see the evolution of Google ads for specifically search in AI overviews over the years and over the time. But right now, Google did say where they're working on it. I don't think they have anything right now that they released. And I haven't even seen any testing around that, which is unusual, because I usually find a lot of things that Google's testing, and I haven't seen any really unique ad formats being tested in those AI overviews. But I'm sure it'll be there at one point.
From you, Julia, anything to add?
Yeah, I just corroborate a lot of the things that Google was talking about last May. They presented something that could potentially be shown in Google Shopping that reminded me of like the videos, almost like a TikTok format you see now on Amazon, which is really cool at Amazon Discover, where these are sponsored but created by creators. And I was like, oh, that'd be so cool to see that in Google Shopping. You know, if I'm like thinking of, I don't know, a pair of shoes I want, if it's a video review right there in search, like how cool would that be? But to Barry's point, I actually haven't seen this come to life yet when I'm doing a search. Like, I'm not sure what Google is going to release there. So I think the verdict is kind of out there on how that will work.
Yeah, and do you think like this change in like potential avenues to gain attention through video type sales through creators, or you kind of touched on like these longer queries, like are we seeing a lot of these changes in user behavior and search patterns, or what are we kind of seeing there from like the user side? And are we seeing them go through AI overviews? Are we seeing some users scroll below them? Just
Do we have any data on that? I mean, Google says people love them. People keep loving them no matter what everybody else says in the world, no matter what SEOs are saying, no matter what the press is saying. Our searchers love them and don't tell us otherwise. That's what Google said.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what they're saying.
Yeah.
And they said specifically the younger generation is actually preferring them over other things. They said that. But they said in general, everybody loves them. And in Google, again, they have to appeal to the younger generation because that's the future. And generally, the younger generation likes to be fed chunk size of answers and knowledge without having them have to do actual research. No offense to the younger people, but that's what TikTok's all about. That's what these platforms are all about, where they're giving you chunk size gems or whatever you want to call them, that you don't really have to do a lot of research to figure it out. And Google's appealing to that. And Google's specifically saying with their data that people do like them, searchers do like them. Specifically, the younger generation likes them a lot more, but even the older generation does like them a lot. And do we know if that's true? Are they sharing any user behavior data with us or anything else? Out of just telling us their searchers like it? No, but I mean, that's good. Where else would we get the data from? Unless you have third parties like, I don't know. I don't think you guys don't track user behavior data on the search results page, right? That's more of a similar web thing, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you'll get them from third party tools, or you can ask people, and asking people is in itself a biased data metric unless you get it in aggregate, and the only company that could get data on aggregate on their own search results is usually Google. So unless, I mean, you could do a big focus group. I'm not sure people do that, but I don't know.
Yeah. And I guess like last question before getting to the Q&A portion of what's next? Like, are we expecting anything big in the near term? Or are we just expecting a lot of continued like quick updates when it comes to AI in general and AI overviews? What are you kind of seeing in the roadmap, Julia?
I think, to the other question, it's interesting because when Google tells us, yeah, everyone loves these, I'm like, well, I don't, and no one I talk to does either. And so I asked, like, what is my own user behavior here? How is my response to this? Well, it's pivoting a little bit, how we actually approach our keyword strategy, although we're not leaving Google, we're not discounting Google search. I mean, it's still the majority of the world starts with a search, but it's like, how will it be served and how will users adapt? Those are the right questions to ask. And then how can your brand last? And so like for me, my user behavior changes because I don't like the AI overviews. I don't find them a good enough resource right now for me. So I just completely ignore them. I scroll, I look for those blue links, or I'm going to ChatGPT to get answers because I find the quality of 4.0 and the content I get back really good for things where I don't necessarily need to read a blog, but I do need a quick answer. So I think Google is going to have to forecast that. Whether they want to or not, there's going to be a loss of traffic that just steadily happens when GPT gets better and better. ChatGPT has better and better responses, multimodal capabilities. And, Google's definitely sees that and looks like they're getting ahead of it with multimodal products of their own that were kind of teased at the I/O conference this May. But I think just looking ahead, like the best question we could ask is not necessarily what's Google going to do next? Because A, Google lies. B, Google doesn't really give you the best product anyway if they do come through with that product. in how it was presented in the press. The better question is to ask, how can my brand last? How can I get ahead and in front of the right traffic at the right time? And if you're asking that, you won't lose. You will definitely win. And if you're always building that trust factor through content and links, and you're consistent, like you won't lose. And there is always going to be opportunity while Google exists, even if the opportunity doesn't look like what we expected it to look like. So by no means should you abandon blogging content at all. I think there's opportunities to win so much. And instead of just hyper fixating on, well, what's Google going to do next? Think about, what can I do that's different, that's ahead of the competition, that's unique and really sets me apart and gets my brand remembered. That is the right direction to go in.
100% agree. It was interesting looking at Apple's move into this. At the WWDC, Apple announced their big Siri changes and their partnerships with OpenAI. And it's more of like they're treating AI as more of like a feature in their platform, and not the platform in and of itself, which is a huge thing. So the way Google and even Bing Chat or Bing has implemented AI into their search, it is a feature in search. It's not a replacement to search itself. And people thought that AI would replace search. And even like the comments that Sam Altman from OpenAI are making around their entry into search, he keeps pushing back. We're not doing search. We're doing AI and AI, and it's not a search. And it's just interesting to see how Google, Microsoft, Apple, etc., are all implementing AI as somewhat of a feature, and so forth. And even Apple said, "Hey, we're not just limiting it to ChatGPT. We're going to let people use Gemini. We're going to let people use other third parties, maybe Perplexity if they're still around after all the lawsuits." Just a joke. But we'll see. I mean, again, I totally agree with Julia. Basically, you have to build the best type of content, the best type of platform that you could possibly build for yourself, and hope that whatever does come in the future around AI and search rewards that type of content, because it probably hopefully will. If not, then we're all out of business and we're all dead anyway. So what are we going to do? So I do think it's interesting how, especially Apple, I think Apple's super smart, and they're much more patient about this type of stuff. They were like, they built the phone much later. They built the music player much later. They built, everything later, and they still tend to do better than everybody else. So it's just interesting they came out with this as more of a feature. They spent more time talking about, what was that? iPad's like calculator feature at the WWDC than they spent talking about AI and specifically ChatGPT. It was hilarious.
Till like an hour in, I was like, wait, where's AI? And then like an hour in, the last hour is about it.
Right. So they spent a lot of time talking about their machine learning and AI, but when it came to ChatGPT specifically, it was maybe like, I don't know, like 20 seconds. And they spent like 2 minutes talking about the iPad's calculator. It's just wild. So it's just kind of telling about what Apple thinks, I guess. And I do think there'll be a lot of changes around AI in terms of how SEOs and content creators do their job. I do think there'll be a lot of changes around how Google uses AI in search. And I do think there is a threat that Google feels strongly around OpenAI and other things. You see everybody implementing AI everywhere. Meta, Facebook, they're all over the place. And they're all features right now. The only one that's really doing this more as a platform is really OpenAI and their competitors. So.
Perfect. Well, thank you for answering our questions. I guess it's time to move to our Q&A section of the chat. So take about 10 minutes here. The first question was from Homer, and I think this kind of is going off of a lot of people in the world of like, can I kind of have more settings in what I want to receive in terms of my queries or AI searches of like, do we see any potential changes in like customization from a user perspective on like depth of response? Like, do we just want something quick and shallow, or do we want something deeper? Is that just going to be continued with reversions of queries and AI search prompts? What are we thinking there?
Yeah, Google at I/O announced they're having a new version of AI answers that lets you either do like a simpler version, they call it, or a more detailed version, or there's the normal version. So they're giving you like 3 options in the search labs right now. You can actually opt into it, and if you do searches there, Google will give you, I think only right now simpler is live, but they'll give you simpler or main. And So that's definitely Google's doing, but they won't let you turn it off. And I asked them Google 1,000 times. People want to turn off AI overviews. The only way to turn off AI overviews is to click on the web result link or use a plugin that uses the web result link. And that turns off not just AI overviews, it also turns off images, certain search, local packs. It turns off videos. It turns off everything in universal search. So there are no customizations right now around I want AI overviews or I don't, unless you hack it or use the web result link. And right now, Google is testing a simpler version and a more detailed version and the normal version of the AI overviews in Search Labs. If that answers the question.
Yeah. Second question, I believe it's from Swapnil Gohorpaid, and it was focused on what kind of like content strategy and website engagement can companies take to like ensure that they're like keeping up to date with it. The ever-changing landscape of search engines. I think we kind of touched on this of like staying true to yourself, but do we have anything to add from there?
I think more, bottom of funnel content is never a bad idea right now. If top of funnel keywords are getting cannibalized by AI overviews and we're losing traffic to AI just presenting a quick solution that might satisfy what that user wanted, then you're always going to be better off thinking of the bottom of funnel while you kind of wait for that to settle down and see what really happens there. I know like my own user behavior, whenever I'm Googling and I even want a quick answer, I'm still scrolling down and clicking on that first couple blue links just because I want to make sure that the AI overview is even correct, especially if it's like mathematical answer or something to do with a notable figure, authors, which is what I'm always Googling. So even though I read that result in AI overviews, I'm still scrolling down. So I think like, is it cannibalizing all top of funnel? Do we take that completely out of our content strategy? No, because even though it's there, that still might not satisfy user intent. To Barry's point earlier, the younger audience is wanting those short chunks, but you have to think about the intent behind that search. And there's still like a lot of reason to produce long form content and give people detailed answer, especially in an age where AI is hallucinating and it's giving us bogus answers. So I think people are more in search of the truth and a deep answer to a question.
Right. And I do agree. I mean, the bottom definitely do that. And all that helps. Like the more content you produce, all that helps you build your brand. And that's how you kind of win the top of the funnel is if the AI overview will like mention your brand because you're so that much popular in that area. I think you could kind of cover that by really building out your brand and making something like people just know you are that brand in that field. Like people don't call search engines, they call it Google. They don't call tissues Kleenex, they call tissues Kleenex. So those types of things that you could do, and you could really do that by becoming an expert and authority in that space.
Yeah, and there's a couple questions in here kind of the same subject, but this one's from Rupert Holmes of how can we explain changes brought by AI overviews to our clients and show SEO services are still valuable despite potential traffic drops? So we kind of talked about like being stuck in like this black box of data. We really don't know, but like how can we agencies go through working with end clients to ensure some sort of confidence?
Yeah, I mean, like we said, we don't have data on this, but just quote Google, and that's all they care about. Your clients usually are really happy with Google statements. And if Google says publisher content is important, which they keep saying publicly, if Google keeps saying that, AI overviews will send you more traffic than not, quote them. I mean, these are statements from Google, and you could quote them and then say, we don't have a way to prove it right now because the data is not provided right now, but hopefully in the future, Google will provide it. But content is nothing. AI overviews and AI services are nothing without the content. So you need to produce that for the AI overviews to serve that stuff. I mean, that's the way I would pitch it to my clients. I don't do this for a living. I don't sell this type of service, but that's how I would, do it.
I've consulted some business owners that are using our AI writer, actually, which is undetectable SEO content. And the way they're positioning it, the way I've kind of helped them is position this like a humanly optimized service that you're delivering to that end client. And that is going to be of more value than just 100% AI, which you have to keep in mind, Google's AI overview is. That is 100% AI generated content. And so users are looking for that content piece they can trust. And so even if we can't always measure the traffic, because traffic, like even our own site is just like this right now. So it would be very hard to like take that if we had a board to report to. Thankfully we don't, we're all bootstrapped. But it would be very hard to take that to the board and be like, yeah, we're growing. We actually are growing, because it doesn't look like it. But the reason to hold steady and the reason to sell SEO services, especially if you're humanly optimizing, you're using AI to produce the content and you're humanly optimizing it, is because that is, I'd say, an even more valuable service than ever, because straight AI generation cannot be trusted. It hallucinates. We know this. Users know this. And so even if Google's promising, oh, everyone loves the overviews, well, that's just simply not true. And being able to report and show your clients that you're producing content and then kind of tell them, we're not going to measure with all the fluctuations. We're going to wait 6 months after consistent production of content, which is what builds your brand and gives you a content library to pull more from. That is a really good approach. So like thinking of it more as a holistic brand building activity, and SEO content itself, like being still super valuable as a service. I've seen some of our users, their agencies are doing better than ever because of the way they've positioned it and the way they're selling AI content, but it's humanly optimized by a real expert. That's you. If you're an SEO and you're selling this as an agency setting, that's you. You're the expert selling this as a service to your clients. And clients really need direction right now. I mean, this is like a ocean that's getting hit by a lot of tempest. So you guiding them through that is also more valuable than ever.
Perfect. And I guess just maybe last question here from Roman, is a bit Insta, is, hey, Barry, besides the Cirrus test, did you hear about any other large scale tests when trying to get in the AI overviews?
No, I haven't. I haven't seen anything else right now. I'm sure people are working on it, but I haven't read anything else. There probably are stuff that I missed. So maybe Google it or ask Google's AI for the answer to that question.
When in doubt, right? It won't be biased. I'm sure it'll be an open answer. So, yeah. But cool. Well, I think that really wraps up our Q&A section. But I want to say thank you for everyone for sticking around until the very end. And just before you go, I just have a couple things to share from our end when it comes to the chance to join SE Ranking. So feel free to become one of those 40,000 customers or over 1 million SEO pros that have tried SE Ranking. Here's a QR code to check out a trial. You can also go to our website. We'll follow up with this information from here. Additionally, we do encourage you to use business emails when signing up. There's some feature unlock there. It also just helps us understand better our end users that are coming to and through, so we can give you the proper experience when navigating our platform. We also have some learning materials out there. So we have courses around SEO, content, how to promote your agency, and SE Ranking as a whole. And then we do have a community as well. So outside of just these webinars and scheduled workshops, if you are looking to partake in more ongoing conversation, you're welcome to join. And then we've also been moving into that podcast world as well. So if you want to hear something more in passing, don't necessarily want to join something live and listen to what makes sense there. And then ultimately, here's some social medias for you to follow us on our links. So thank you all again. Thank you, Barry. Thank you, Julia. I learned a lot, and I hope everyone else did too.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Over 1 million SEO pros have tried SE Ranking, and here's why.
Very complete SEO software for growing my agency.
Robust SEO features, accurate data, and exceptional customer support.
Advanced SEO marketing tool for the most demanding clients.
Your streamlined SEO experience is our top priority. Find and fix technical issues on your website. Analyze the performance of your competitors in search. Generate SEO optimized content to outrank rivals. Build a solid backlink profile with insights. Check in on your rankings to track progress. You can have all of this and more without breaking the bank. Very likely the best alternative to SEMrush and Ahrefs. So why are you still overpaying for SEO? Join the SE Ranking family today.